Without a planer, the sled becomes the reference. If the rails aren't flat, nothing else will be. Flatness is manual. Parallelism is manual. There's no machine enforcing it. And once I start removing material from the inside, whatever geometry I've created is the one I'm stuck with. Last time we locked in the body outline on paper. Now it's time to make that something a little more substantial. But first, I have a promise to keep. Always read the fine print. Now, there was two ways this could have gone. One, we could have started back on the body blank and started thicknessing and making massive amounts of sawdust. But I'm a horrendous tease. Instead, let's get the template done first, huh? So now, we refine this with our favorite tool. Shinto Saw Rasp. I have no idea why I called it my favorite tool. It's really not. Rasps are okay, but there's a lot of other things I'd much rather be using. It is, however, a very effective tool for refining these curves. But for getting into the inside corners, the Shinto's just not going to cut it. Well, it could cut it, but oh, never mind. And then just a little final touch-up. The rasp is good. The sandpaper does the final refinement. So with that out of the way, I guess we're ready to start on the body blank. I have a couple options here. I have this chunk of Spanish cedar, and then I have this. This one's kind of calling my name. We're gonna go with this one. I think that'll do nicely. So we've selected our blank, but unfortunately, it has a few problems. We know it's not flat, and we know it's way too thick. So how are we going to solve those problems? Old-fashioned method would be to attack it with a hand plane. I'm just getting tired thinking about that. Could stick it on my CNC. We're going to go with a slab flattening method using the small router. We need to attach runners to either side of the board. Where do we get these runners from? The factory edge on MDF is usually nice and straight. Same goes for plywood. As long as somebody hasn't dropped it, it should be a nice straight edge. So to achieve this, we're going to cut off the straight edge, keeping the factory edge, and we'll use that factory edge with the router to repeatedly cut straight and true edges. So with careful measurement, we create our runners. We have the runners, but we need a flat surface in order to attach the runners. Problem is, my workbench is anything but flat. You could use the hand plane to plane this flat. Do not use it to take thickness off, just use it to plane it flat. Second option is I suspect you have a floor, and somewhere in that floor is a flat section. I know, it's not the floor, but today my table saw is being a stand-in. Have you ever tried to film something while working on the floor? Anyways, I'm using the playing cards to bring the blank up off the floor just a little bit so that it doesn't rock so much potentially, and that way the runners are the highest point. And a couple screws just to make sure things don't break loose on us. Okay, what good are rules if you can't try and bend them a little bit? In all seriousness, I have multiple slab flattening bits on hand already. Problem is, they're all just a little too big for the small router. The peg doesn't fit the hole, if you know what I mean. So I'm using the big router instead of the small one and buying yet another bit that I already have 3 of. So this blank is just a little bit thick. Gotta knock off a solid 1/2 inch here. Don't try and knock off thickness like that in one pass. Being thick is something you just kind of have to chip away at. Also, don't be me. Secure your work better. The bench cookies were not sufficient work holding. So this isn't quite ready yet. We still have some fine lines, some bits left over, but we have cut out enough space to fit our entire template. See, if I had just taken a little more time with the router, I could have saved myself a lot of work with chisels and rasps and hand planes. But no, of course I made work harder for me. And since we're flattening, I'm going really aggressive with some 80 grit. Small change of plan. The sander was leveling off just fine, but I kind of felt like using the hand plane for a little while. Plus it averages out the bumps just a little bit better. Now, I don't often use hand planes on wide flat surfaces, partially because I haven't got them to not leave ridges yet. So I'm gonna go back, finish it up with the sander, and that should be a glue-ready surface. But let's make sure. And it checks out. We've got no gaps and no rocking, so we're ready to move on. If guitar building had a motto, I would say it's all about the center line. And in this case, I want that center block to be in the center of my body, so that's what I'm doing right now. And since we're just about to start cutting, let me throw in a pack of jigsaw blades. Now look, I don't often use a jigsaw. I have a nice bandsaw, I'd much rather use that, so the jigsaw mostly collects dust. And part of that comes down to, I don't find jigsaws particularly accurate. They're harder to control, and the blade loves to wander. Also, I really should have clamped this thing down properly, instead of using the hand clamp method. While I'm keeping plenty of distance between me and the blade, I really should just do better. Yeah, try not to hit your cookies. And I even told myself to position that where I wouldn't hit it. Yeah, failed on that count. And might need to go on a diet a little bit. Even with all that extra meat, it really is a good thing the jigsaw wandered away from the line, not inward. Otherwise, I might be in some real trouble right about now. So I'm curious, just how much this body blank here weighs? The blank itself weighs 2,100 grams or 2.1 kilos. I don't particularly like really heavy guitars. And I also have no clue why I'm measuring the remaining chunks. 590. So, 2.1 kilos. I've built one with a similar set of hardware before, and it started out 5.3 pounds. And by the time it was done, the thing weighed just over 9 pounds. So I want to chamber this. So now I need to make some templates to do this. Same tricks, same materials. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do that real quick, and I'll catch you when they're done. This may seem an imprecise method, but it really doesn't need to be precise. All I'm doing is taking the body outline and then I'm drawing in about a 3/4 of an inch or 19mm offset. It doesn't have to be perfect. Nobody will ever see it. As long as there's enough material, we're good to go. There are, however, a couple of major considerations. Because I am going to put a back contour on this body, a belly carve as some people call it, I need to make sure I don't cut away material where I might end up carving right into that. So that's why these carves don't go all the way out to the front horns. They stop way short. I'm going to go ahead and mark them out onto my main template here to make sure that there's no conflicts, no screw ups, and so I have a reference. So I couldn't see the edge of my body lines through the template, so I drilled a couple holes as, well, locators. Should have seen that coming. And yes, I do have a habit of talking way too much, and so I end up fast forwarding through myself talking. You know, ramble on. Nothing special, just a couple bridge stud build outs, so when I go to put the actual studs in, they have some nice meat surrounding them without putting a whole bunch of mass in everywhere else. Okay. Now we're ready to attach the template and get to routing. I'm going to do that in the other shop. It's way too messy down here. This is in the subject of lessons learned the hard way. Use a short router bit and take multiple depth stops around your body. We'll end up switching up to a taller bit to be able to go deeper. Look, even if I had my fancy router table for this, I probably wouldn't use a single large bit to make these passes. Fact of the matter is, they tend to grab corners and love, well, I've affectionately nicknamed a friend's router table Chuck, because it likes to chuck work pieces across the shop. Anyways, I did 1 or 2 passes with the short bit, peeled off the template, because now the body can be the template, switched up to a taller 3/4 bit, and now I'm going to use a bottom bearing bit instead, just so that I don't have the bit sticking below the work. You could get away with 2 router bits, a short and a tall top bearing. I prefer the 3. Plus, you'll find uses for it. Router bits are like clamps. You can never have too many. And let's be honest, they take up a whole lot less space. Wait, didn't I just say I didn't need another router bit earlier on? Oh boy. Now to start hogging out these cavities. Could I do it with just the router bit? Yeah, sure, if you like dust in your face. No, I'm gonna grab a Forstner bit, set up a depth stop, and hog out most of it with these larger chips. Come on, isn't that so much nicer than the Screaming Meanie? Especially since, when it comes to the trim router, it seems that dust collection was a complete afterthought. Just how much weight did this thing lose after all that cutting? Remember, when we started, it was at 2,100 grams. 1635. So we've cut off basically a quarter of its weight again. Before we start thinking about moving on to the top, though, guess what just came in? And or bridge. Well, I didn't really need those build-outs after all. But you know what? I'm okay with it. I guess we're just about ready to start thinking about the top. Question is this the one I want to use? Yeah, let's go with it. Let's go with this one. Ooh, yeah. Lacquer, that's the wrong tin. How many of you spotted that before I did it? Oh yeah, there's nothing to question about that. Nothing at all. That is absolutely gorgeous. And all the figure is where we're not going to be cutting bits out of it. Oh. Seriously, dude. Get a room. Ugh. Well, that's been a roller coaster couple of days. Now you'll be wondering, why is there a clamp on it? Well, that's because I came back down to this thing to look at it yesterday, right? Thinking I'd get started. Get ready to joint up the top and glue it up and everything. But they looked like an absolute potato chip. They were cupped, they were warped. So I put a clamp on it and walked away for a day. I figured it wasn't going to do anything. It might pull out a little bit of the stress, but not much. And so then I come back to do this and I find out that they're basically dead flat again. Which is good. I just don't have any proof of it. And now it's time to bust out the big shooting board. Not a particularly nice one, it was just scraps I had on hand. In any case, I like to stick the two halves together. Makes it a lot easier to joint them, I find. Then I will stick it down to the shooting board for the first few heavy passes. Maybe I should just stick some sandpaper to it or something? I don't know. But why joint them together anyways? Reality is, even though a hand plane gets close to cutting square, it may be slightly out of square. And because of that, you want to be able to average the two cuts and have them match. Hence, cut them together. So I've just got myself a flat plate here and a random stick of material here. This is a piece of ash offcut. We'll stick a 2x4 and carve it up in there, I guess, for pricing, but that's really not worth a whole lot. I'm just going to use it as a clamping caul to kind of keep everything nice and flat here. We'll need more of these later. That will prevent any squeeze out through the back. We'll put some more tension strips down. These little ones, the tip is always clogged. I mean always. That particular one had been cleaned out so many times, I had to just replace it. It was cracked. I find these really good for getting glue up, although in this case it looks like it's not going to play nice. I could do this with long clamps as well, but if the joint is good, the tape should be more than enough to do the job. If the joint is bad... Yeah, I always forget how much this method really does stink to do. Yeah, I didn't quite think this through all the way. Was going to use the two clamps to apply pressure in the middle without realizing that I had 4 pieces and only 2 hands. Thankfully, an alternate method was found. I got away with putting it in the vise, but it requires a pretty long jaw to pull that off. Ideally, I would have put a curve in the clamping caul first, but I thought I was going to get away with it. And I would have too, if it wasn't for you meddling kids. So let's learn from that mistake and make those curved clamping cauls right now. To do so, I'm just going to take some straight pieces and use progressive cuts by cutting short and then progressively getting longer cuts as I move inward, and that will plane an arch into the piece of wood. This might be one of the only times you want to use a hand plane to make something not straight. All right. Let's go ahead and get the tape off of here. Almost perfect. We do still have a little tiny ridge that we're going to have to work out. And that's what the scrapers are for. Could do this with a hand plane, but it would be a lot more dangerous. And this is, well, it's just a fingernail biter, really. Sharpening a card scraper isn't difficult. Explaining exactly how to sharpen a card scraper is a bit more challenging. Hot! These things put out a lot of heat. Yes, I already knew that, but it still surprises me every time. Actually, since I mentioned sharpening, this would be a good time to put in the price tag for a sharpening stone. There you go. So it's been scraped, but I want to make sure it's sanded nice and smooth for the glue joint. Nobody wants a rough backside. And yes, I have in the past cut things and glued things the wrong way up. Who'd have guessed that these would have done that so effectively? Well, I guess it makes sense. I mean, what is paper but? Now, aligning the center line's a bit of a challenge. Good news is that this sticks out over the edge here, so I can put a center line on the back and line these two up. But how do we keep it from shifting around during glue up? Well, we can use a toothpick or some kind of alignment pin of the like. And if I knew exactly where the pickups were going, I would drill one in at the pickup and one at the neck pocket. As it is, I'm just going to go with one at the neck pocket, and I'll just have to carefully align this one. Turns out that toothpicks are sold as 2 millimeters in diameter. The good news is a 5/64 drill bit does the job just as well, and that's in the standard kit. Or you can use a drill bit, or you can use a nail. If it fits in the hole tight enough, you can use it as an alignment pin. Just remember, some things you want to be able to get back out of the hole. Do keep that in mind. It's an ink brayer for anybody curious. Forget the fancy glue roller pots and the brushes and the squeegees. Just get an ink brayer. These things are killer for this job. And considering how things have gotten, it might actually be cheaper than a cup of coffee. Yeah, maybe not literally, but you get the idea. I don't know who I was watching recently, but they were attacking old woodworker adages like you can never have too many clamps. That definitely did not hold true here. I had to use every clamp within reach, including a few I maybe shouldn't have. Although, if we're being totally honest, about a third of my clamps are not present in the room. They're still up in the freezing cold shop, so this is more of a prior planning problem. Speaking of clamps I maybe shouldn't have used, well, if you know, you know. but they're doing the same job as one of the small clamps, so I am not going to price them. Besides, they would break the bank. I don't know why I keep these monster clamps down here. They just don't fit the space.
Trying to shove into a corner here. This whole thing's a bit of a bench hog. I was going to do the routing of this, but this is going to have to dry for a while, and well, if you've seen one flush trim, you've seen a million flush trims, haven't you? So on that note, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.